Hello, this is RV Vagabond Jerry, and I'm in Fort Myers, Florida today, and I'm at the Edison and Ford estates. And both Thomas Edison and Henry Ford created a winter getaway for themselves here in Fort Myers because they all lived up in places where it gets really cold. Edison was in New Jersey and Ford was in Michigan. So they built their own winter estates here right next door to each other. And now they have created the Edison estate and the Ford estate combined as a tourist attraction so that everyone can come and see what it's like now and after it's been restored. This tells you about the restorations. So I'm going to walk around and show you what's here. This tells a little about it. And here's some of the buildings. There's a little fountain, and out here is the pier. He built this pier that was about 1/3 of a mile long out into the river so that it could get to boats because the river wasn't deep enough near the shore. This tells about the pier. And it really is not functional anymore, as you can see. I bet the hurricanes have torn it up over the years. And this river goes out to the sea that way. This is Edison's study, and it looks like they have preserved it pretty well. And he's got a swimming pool, fairly small one, but with 2 diving boards, so it must be really deep. This is the bathhouse, and this tells about the pool complex, and I'm a little surprised that it's only 7 feet deep. Seems like with a diving board that high, it should be a lot deeper. You can do guided tours of the estate, or you can do a self-guided tour, and they give you this wand where you press the numbers and it gives you a narrative. Like you press 10 and it tells you about the yard here, and this is the main Edison's house. You press 11, it tells you about the living room. You can't go in. This is as far as you can get at this barrier. This is the library, which is actually part of the living room area. There's stairs that go up to the 2nd floor. And then number 9 is the bedroom. It's got double twin beds. How about that? This swing here seems to be a little high off of the floor. Here's another shot of the living room from the other side. And there's the library. And look at the view. Nice view of the river. This shows the 2nd floor of Edison's home. And right next to that is the guest house. It seems to be about the same size. That looks like a baby grand piano there. Here is a closer up view of the river. This white picket fence separates Edison's estate there with Henry Ford's estate right here. I got this full-size statue of him. That's the Ford home, and this is his garage, which has 4 of his cars in it. Got a 29 Model A and the 1917 truck. The 21 Model T truck and the cab and the bed are made out of wood. And this is a 23 Model T touring car. Did you know this? Now I'm going to take a look at Ford's house. This is the living room. And this must be one of Edison's phonographs. And look at this, a fireplace for southern Florida in the winter. There's several bedrooms here for his secretary, his maid, and this is a guest bedroom. Each one has its own bathroom, and then there's also an outside half bath here. This must be the world's largest fig tree. Just look at the root system. Wow. That is gigantic. Both Ford and Edison planted a lot of exotic trees here, mainly trying to find the best kind of sources for rubber for the tires. Right beside the river here, that root system is pretty amazing. From the side here, you can see how it branches off into 2 completely separate tree structures, and quite an amazing amount of shade in the lawn here too. This, I think, is even more amazing. I want to read about this and then let me show you what this looks like. It is just an incredible display of huge fig trees. I had a fig tree in my backyard when I was a kid, but it was more like a bush. This is amazingly complex and gigantic. Wow. And right amongst the fig trees here is a life-size statue of Edison. Gosh, I wonder how old all these are. Must have taken hundreds of years. Couldn't be, but wow, that's amazing. The caretaker here just told me that this tree was originally planted in 1925, believe it or not. But she said that limbs start dropping, and as the limbs drop, like here, they just self-plant themselves and everything just multiplies. That's how it's gotten so wide and so huge. Like this limb here, it just drops and creates another tree. And then further over here, another one. Wow. That's why there are so many what looks like tree bases Edison had a 16 Model T, which they still have here. Looks brand new right out of the factory. And also, this is interesting. This is a cross-section showing all of the parts. You follow those lines and it shows you where all of the parts are. I bet you didn't know Ford started the Cadillac company. Here's some interesting history about it. I bet you never seen one of these. Look at all those batteries. Just a tractor for pulling things right next to this Cadillac. This is a pretty rare vehicle. Let's look into the back of this chuck wagon.
And test drove vehicles fitted with Firestone's new balloon tires. A year later, during their last joint expedition, Ford hosted the Vagabonds again. This time.
Guess what this is? A 75,000 watt light bulb. And this one over here is 50,000 water. I'm not going to show you much detail of what's here. There is just so much in each one of these cases. Oh, this one jumps from 30 to 50. And here's a collection of Edison's photographs. And if you're really interested, here is the history of rubber. Bouncing through time. If you care to read each one of those. If I get the reflection out of the way. You might want to search on YouTube about the history of the quest of rubber. It's a very interesting story. And here are even more Edison phonographs.
You kind of line up the first and last one.
And also some of Edison's early movie cameras. If you didn't know, Edison also invented the movie camera. And there's a poster from one of the movies. I bet you've actually looked into these somewhere. There's a lot of these around the country. Back in the 50s and 60s, I saw them where they were still in service. Next is Edison's laboratory. This is a pretty large building. Look at all that equipment. It's the machine shop. You can read about his machine shop here. And here's the lab office. His typewriter and all those bottles. And over here in the cabinet is a collection of small bottles that are all labeled as to what are on them. It's hard to read, but they are all labeled small bottles of various chemicals, I assume. Look how many there are. Did a lot of experimenting with that. Here are even more fig trees with huge trunks. That's the big one I showed you earlier, and it is even wider than I thought it was. This is right behind the lab building. You know what? I think I'll have teriyaki for lunch. This is a pretty amazing place, and it is the only thing I found in Fort Myers to video for you. So if you're coming through here, you definitely want to come through and see the Edison Ford estate. Good day, folks.